Okay. All right. And we are live coming from the Momentum Talk Show here. I'm Lindsay, and we have Lisa Robbin Young with us today on the Momentum Talk Show. Say hello, Lisa.
Hi, it's so great to be here. I'm so excited.
Super excited to have you as well. And we are going to be discussing what Lisa does and how excited we are to have her. And to begin, I am going to invite all of us to learn a little bit more about what momentum stands for. So momentum stands for monumental opportunity manifesting extraordinary new times upon man and womankind. Ooh, I had that memorized. Took me a while. So momentum was a complete download long over a year ago now, just about when COVID was starting. I got a download that said, Lindsay, you're starting a talk show. And I said, okay, what's it going to be called? It said momentum. And I said, great. What does that stand for? And then boom, whoosh, this all came in. So we're happy to have you here with us, Lisa. I am going to have you share with the audience what you do and a little bit about the creatives. And I think you can tell us a little bit about what all that means and who you are in that realm.
Sure. Yeah. So I have two lives basically. I'm a performing artist, I am an author, speaker, all that good stuff. And I also have a business incubator and growth accelerator for other creative entrepreneurs. So I'm helping other creatives make good money doing what they love without having to be on the hamster wheel of hustle all the time. Because as someone who has been down the path of creative entrepreneurship, I know it can be very challenging to continue to just keep grinding. It's not sustainable. It isn't profitable. And sometimes it's downright painful. And so that's kind of the body of work that I've built over many years, excuse me, both online and off. And, that's the joy that I have too, right? To be able to show up and perform, but also to be able to share from the heart and help these people who, many of whom thought it wasn't even possible to own their dreams and want what they want in the way that they want it. And you and I were talking before we started, and you had said, well, is there somebody that you want to reach with this message today? And I'm like, as I sit with this, I know that there's somebody out there right now who wants something. They have a goal, a dream, a desire, and they want what they want in a particular way. And whether or not you actually get something that way, I want you to know that it's okay to want what you want the way that you want it. We won't always get it that way, but I mean, it's very important for us to own our desires and own what's important for us and own the truth of how we want to envision our lives to be. And like for a lot of us, we don't even feel safe to just hold on to our dreams.
Yeah. Yeah, when you said that, I can feel it again now. If anyone in the audience is there with us and they just feel into what that feels like, to embody what you want and be able to express that in a safe space is just such a beautiful thing. So I'm just going to give us a little quick moment just to feel into that for those of you out there who are receiving this message. Beautiful. And I noticed when you said that and a few other things actually that I went a step not further, but prior to knowing what you want. And then I guess we went to safe space. So I'm curious what you think about that. And I'm happy to share as well from a client perspective.
About knowing what you want?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I think there's a big challenge in our society right now where we have been pigeonholed and shoehorned for so long that we have all of these external voices telling us what we should want and how things should be. And we have all these shoulds foisted upon us on the daily that it can be very challenging to go, okay, but what do I really want? What do I really, me personally? And in working with clients, sometimes I have to do a lot of unpacking and peeling away of, I hear you say that. And is that you, or is that your mom's voice? Like, well, who is saying that? Because that doesn't sound like the you that I've talked to before. And sometimes it's really hard to come at what you want. And instead we have to come at, well, what don't you want?
Yes, I love how you say that.
How do we flip that, right? I don't want to keep living like this. Cool. So what do you want to be different? And let's start there. Sometimes we have to drill down to like the smallest, tiniest, one single little thing and see if we can make a change there. And then that opens the doors, because so often people are like, I just don't even think it's possible. I remember sitting in workshops with people who are like, I don't even know why we're doing this dreaming and visioning thing. Nothing's going to happen anyways. Nothing ever, like anything I want never happens. It always falls apart. And I'm like, wow, we've got some rewiring to do. Can we find a different way to look at this? Can we find something? Can we find some grain of truth that's going to give you some evidence that's going to put you in the right direction? Because everything that goes on in our noodle, I talk about the file clerk in your head, and there's this virtual file clerk in your head who does nothing except file the experiences of your life based on how you judge it. This is why you see people who couldn't carry a tune in a lead-lined bucket showing up to audition for shows like The Voice or American Idol, because they've got some level of evidence from their past life that says, I'm an amazing singer and I deserve to be on a show like this, whether it's true or not, because they've had well-meaning friends and family who are like, you're such an amazing singer. Oh my gosh, I love your stage presence. And so they take all of those experiences to the file clerk in their head and say, file this under the file that says, I am an amazing singer. And the file clerk goes, okay, and just sticks it in the file. And then there are other people who are super sensitive, who are very hyper aware, who are their own worst critics sometimes, and they can have a really great experience. Oh my gosh, that was so beautiful. You were such an amazing singer. And they go, oh, but I missed 4 notes and I was flat in this spot, and they're just picking apart their thing. And so they go to the file clerk and say, put this in the file that says, I can't sing worth a bean. Okay, says the file clerk, and he just files it away. And then when you've got an opportunity to go perform somewhere, right? Well, I don't know if I should go take this opportunity. Let me go to the file clerk in my head. Bring me the file folders that say I sing great and I sing like crap. And you get this big folder that says I sing like crap, whomp, and this little tiny folder that says I sing great. And you're like, yeah, I'm not going. Because of what's been going on here. And it's all about how you've been judging the experiences that you've been having versus what's really going on.
Yes. May I respond to that?
Yeah, please.
It reminds me of limiting beliefs, and also looking at life through the way we talk about it is like through a trauma lens. And so I like what you said there when you say, this is what I'm thinking and this is reality. And when you do that, and I do this often, is like, okay, that's actually what's going on. And this is what's going into my head. And they're very different things. And it's helpful. And it can be helpful in a flip-flop way too. You can actually romanticize if you're talking about relationships, for example, or job or whatever it may be, like, oh, everything is so wonderful. And then you're like, actually, the facts are not lining up here.
Yes.
So I think you could use that to your, that exercise to your advantage in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes we're in a position where we can't see ourselves beyond that by ourselves, right? And that's why we have coaches and doctors and consultants and healers and all of these service professionals that are there to come alongside you and go, let me help you see this from a different perspective. Let me help you see what maybe you're not seeing because you're just so in it right now. And we need to peel some blinders back and help you see some new perspectives.
Yes, yes, yes. Step outside yourself. Definitely. Okay. So I love what you're saying there. And we discussed, so you're talking about people saying what they want, and we also discussed safe space. So could you touch on that a little bit? Disability.
Yeah. So we are in a climate right now that the last 4 years, especially here in the United States, has heightened the level of unsafety for a lot of marginalized people, right? We have LGBTQIA people, we have Black people, we have mixed race people, of which I am. We have fat people, disabled people, all of these people who do not fall within the standard quote unquote norms, who don't always feel safe to even just show up in a room.
Physically, verbally, emotionally, with their presence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I can't walk into a room and be who I am and be comfortable in my own skin if I don't know what's going on in that room around me. If I'm the only Black person in the community, and I look pretty white for a Black person, and I walk into a room filled with, and I live in the Deep South, filled with a lot of white people who have no idea of my ethnic background, and they start mouthing off, it's very easy for me to feel like I need to leave right now because my safety, my physical safety could be in danger. And I'm not even dark skinned, right? So how do you as a human being allow yourself to want what you want the way that you want it when you don't even feel safe to show up in a room?
Yes.
That's a huge problem in our culture right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. And that reminds me of the contraction. I was just thinking of root chakra, safety, security, unconditional love, food, water, shelter, all that. And then this, then the throat chakra is shutting as well. So then you have this, double issue going on. And you're like, you get into trauma response of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And then you're like, wait, am I physically out of here? Or I'm just going to silence myself so I don't share because that could be safe.
And sometimes you don't even know why. Like,
No.
you just get a sense of, I really shouldn't say anything and I should probably just leave.
Yeah.
And so you try, and if you're lucky, you can. And sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're in a work environment and you need that job, right?
Yeah,
and that's really hard. So it becomes even more important, especially in this, maybe I'm gonna crush fingers, post-pandemic age that we're moving into, please. It's even more important that we're finding our people, that we're connecting to like-minded, similar needs and desires and circumstances, but also continuing to make inroads into other communities. One of the things that I tell my clients, I have about 40% of the clients that I work with have some type of capacity constraint, whether it's a chronic illness, a disability, caring for a loved one, something that means that they just can't work a 40-hour work week, no matter what you try to say. They just can't do it. And so one of the things that I try to remind them of is, yes, the system is broken, and yes, the system is hard, and we can't change the system from the outside. We've got to be in it, making those inroads, making those connections, and changing those minds of those people. It is hard work. It's not fun work. It's unfortunate that it even has to be done. And yet, if we're not all doing that work, then things aren't going to change, because people are going to be like, well, it's working fine for me, so why should I change? And it's like, yeah, you need to meet the person who it doesn't work for. And they won't meet you if you're not inside that system.
Oh, I love all of that, because that's part of my mission as well, is if you can change just one person that's influencing hundreds or thousands, and they are the decision maker, you're going to change how things run. Infrastructure is going to change, and in business, for example, and in society. I think you're totally right. And Astrolot, go ahead.
Well, I'm recalling, and I'm probably, because I'm recalling it off the top of my head, I'm probably going to get some of the details wrong, but I'm thinking way back to the women's suffrage movement. And the president was walking up the steps into some important building, and the protesters, the women protesters, were being spat on and yelled at and called all kinds of names. And one of the women, and I wish I could remember her name right now, but I can't, she called out to the president, and basically said, you're the one that has to make the change here. You're the one that has to make this different. Yeah. And because she spoke up as someone fighting that system to a person inside that system, things started to change.
Oh, I can feel that dismantling even in my body as you speak.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. I wish I could remember names right now, but I can't, because I'm in the moment. So
you have the example. That's good. Self-advocacy. We touched on this. Yeah, that was also part of the intention a little bit initially, I think.
Yeah. So this comes back to, that feeling safe piece. We will not advocate for ourselves if we don't feel safe. And yet we cultivate and start to stimulate a safe space by speaking up. Because if we don't say what's going on, everybody just assumes everything is status quo. One of the things that I tell my clients regularly is, you train people how to treat you based on two things: what you've come to accept from them and what they've come to expect from you. So if you continue doing something, they're going to expect it's always going to be that way. If you let them do something to you, they're going to expect that that's okay for them to keep doing to you. So at some point, we have to be courageous enough to speak up and go, that is not okay, or that is not how I want this, or this needs to change. And sometimes that means breaking our safety boundary in order to have that level of courage to go, this doesn't work. And we're seeing a lot of that. We've been seeing a lot of that over the last 12 months, right? From all of the protests early last year, all the way through, to everything that's been going on has been a statement of people saying things are not working the way that they're working right now. Now, some people are more effectual at this than others, and some are more appropriate than others. I'm not going to get into that conversation, but the point is still the same. We need to be speaking up. We need to be advocating for ourselves. And it is hard work. And we need to be able to take time away from doing that work to care for ourselves, because that's another piece of self-advocacy, right? We can't work ourselves to death, because then there's nothing left of us to give in whatever fight we're fighting. And we're all fighting something. We've all got to fight. We've all got a dog in somebody's fight. Like, we just do. And so we have to recognize which are the battles that are most important for me to be showing up for, and which are the ones that I have to trust other people in my community can fight on my behalf, because I'm focused on these, right? And if you're not seeing your life, at least in some degree, at some level, as being an advocate for something, you're not fully engaged in this world. You can't be fully engaged in this world because there's so much going on. There's got to be something that's calling to you. There's got to be something that you want to see improved or changed or bettered. And that's where you get that piece of advocacy. And if nothing else, we want to start with ourselves, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not going to be around. Period.
Yes, I just got chills when you were speaking. And 3 words came up for me. May I share?
Sure.
Boundaries, self-care, and passionate, not passion. But yeah, and the self-care, I mean, saying no to something in order to take care of yourself, or have a night where you're quiet, or you're, retreating, or not being social, is important. And, sometimes I think I share this on a lot of talks I've done here. There was a time when it was my job to say no. And a coach told me, write that on your piece of paper, Lindsay. And I was like, I can't put my pen down there. Not doing it, because I was like the bobblehead, like, yes, 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 yes. And it's like,
if I say yes, then of course you're going to like me, right? But sometimes saying no is a greater, more compassionate act of love, right? Setting boundaries with your children and saying, no, honey, you can't stick that fork in the electrical outlet. No, you can't have that third donut, right? I love you and I want you to live and have a healthy life. And so I'm saying no. No is sexy. Saying no is sexy. That's something I also try to remember for myself and encourage my clients to. It's a complete sentence. It is sexy. It's something we need to do more often for ourselves and for the people around us, to model that it's okay to not say yes to everything. It's okay to not be on all the time. It's okay to turn all the volume down and all the lights down and draw the curtains and just be with yourself. And I know I've got introverted friends who are like, I do that all the time. And I got extroverted friends who are like, what are you saying? We can't do that. Yes. Yes, you can. You need to, because that downtime is where you replenish. It's where you fill back up. It's where you ready yourself for the next wave of whatever you're up to. And I've learned this the hard way, right? I was in my 20s, I was go, go, go. I had 6 bosses. I was working all the time. I had a kid. I was in full-time college. I was doing all the things. And by the time I was 30, I was like, there's no fulfillment here. There's no satisfaction here. There's no joy here. Why am I working so hard?
Yeah.
Right? Because there'll just be more work to do.
Yeah,
so instead of continuing to do, let's be more strategic. And you're seeing something right now that they're calling the Great Resignation. All these people who've had time over the last year to really examine their lives and the work that they're doing and the way that they've been working, and going, yeah, that doesn't work for me anymore. I want to do something different. And so I'm leaving this career path, or I'm leaving this job, or I'm looking for a new opportunity, because we've hit that critical mass of, if I'm not taking care of me, who else is going to do it?
Yes. And okay, that's perfect segue into the self-advocacy. I know maybe I even had this as that, but you mentioned that you used the word doctors, and we had a long line of people on this list need to know that we're paying attention, and we added coaches, relationships. So I think once you have the boundaries, the self-care set, and you know what you're passionate about, letting others know that you are paying attention. Let's touch on that for a moment.
Yeah, well, so a boundary doesn't mean anything if it's never tested. A
Mm,
boundary is just a fence in the wilderness until somebody tries to cross it. You can set a boundary, but then you have to honor that boundary. And you have to encourage people to respect that boundary,
yes.
right? And that means that there are going to be consequences. And so when you show up as a fat mixed race woman to a doctor who immediately writes you off because you're overweight, you have to say, no, I'm sorry. I've been overweight for many, many years, and this problem only just now started. So there's something else going on that I need you to look at, and don't just write me off. And that's that, speaking up for yourself thing. And it's not just doctors, right? Like, I was talking to you earlier about like coaches. Sometimes I have clients who are like, just tell me what to do and I will do it. I mean, that's not how coaching works.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want a boss, go get a job. But if you want to move towards something, then you tell me what it is you want to move towards. And we set up a structure of what might it look like in order to move you in that direction. And then I help hold you accountable in love and ask you questions and move you that way. It's not, okay, first you get on Facebook and then you run some ads and then you're like, no, that's not how this works. But that's what people have been conditioned to that operate, right? And so we have to learn, no, what you're asking me to do is out of integrity with who I am. And so I want to find a different way to do this. I had a coach who pretty much almost ruined my career, ruined my business, because I just turned everything over and said, I will do whatever you tell me to do. No, I had to take back control and recognize that some of the things that they were asking me to do were out of alignment with who I am and what's right for me. And so that's why I spend a lot of my time now helping my clients recognize, how are you uniquely wired to work? What's your creative type? What does that mean? How do you show up? And then how do we build your business to support you showing up that way instead of trying to be something that you're not?
Yes. Okay. Another segue. Nice. Types of creatives. Take it away.
Okay. So I don't know, 5 years ago, I wrote this book back here called Creative Freedom. And in it, I unveil what I discovered as this spectrum of creative entrepreneurship, these different types of creatives. And we go from the very chaotic, who are nonlinear. They are very go with the flow, trust your intuition. They put a high value on the experience of things, how they look and feel, and how they're going to wow their clients, right? All the way to the other end, which are linear creatives. And these people sometimes don't even consider themselves creative at all, but they're intellectual property holders and they're thought leaders, and they are built on systems and processes and order. Like order runs the day for them. And then there are these people in the middle like me. I'm a fusion creative. I kind of live with one foot in each world, right? Like I understand the need for intuition, but I also love me some systems and calendars and schedules and processes. They help give me some sanity, right? But if I stay in either one of those worlds for too long, that other part of me starts going, hey, what about me? Like, I don't get too off in the clouds, don't get too rooted to the ground.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges that I have as a fusion creative is, and fusions in general, is that because we tend to speak both languages, we tend to be good at a lot of different things. It's hard to pick one thing to pursue. And we don't ask for help because we're good at things, so we should just do them. It's just faster if I do it myself. And we talked about this earlier. And the problem with that is you end up holding all the things and you never release the things that you might be okay at or good at, so that you can stay focused on what you're truly great at. Right. And that's a challenge for us. And the other types have their own unique sets of challenges. Linears, because they're so systems focused, they can over systematize, and everything has to be you have to check a box for everything, and it's type A, and we don't care how long it takes. We just want to get the result. And chaotics have, the opposite problem. It's like, I don't care what it costs. I just want it to be amazing. Well, there's time and a place for that, and we have to mitigate that. And so, that has been my experience over the last 5-6 years, just helping people lean into your unique type informs how you're uniquely wired to show up as a creative and as a business owner. And why try to be something that you're not when you have this unique gift and talent that is perfectly suited to who you are? Like, go do more of that and let other people help you, support you in showing up as your best version of yourself, so that you don't have to drag all of that stuff along behind you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That was really beautiful. It was a great explanation too. And like I like this. It's like like wavering between two. I'm pretty similar to you in that, where too much in one makes you feel like I
Yeah.
need the other, and too much of the other is like a little like woo, and you're like I got to get grounded again.
Yep.
I'm
Exactly.
curious how people what.
I just said exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's fun. I like the visual of it as well. I'm curious how people feel when they discover that about themselves. If it's like, oh, I already knew all that, or like, oh, this is so eye-opening, or is it like a rediscovery of self?
Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag, right? Like some people are like, yep, knew that. And now they have the confirmation they need to
Yeah.
just go do and be. And other people are like, oh my gosh, this explains so much. Now I can let those things go and I can find somebody else and I can just do the things that I'm really great at and whew, sigh of relief, right?
Yeah.
For people who've done a lot of work on themselves, um, this is more confirmation. And now that you've got the opening, here's how to start moving in that direction more assertively, right? But for people who maybe haven't done a lot of self-exploration or haven't trusted their own inner knowing a lot, this is more like, oh, sigh of relief. Now I can start building this business in a way that really supports me and really allows me to have what I want and experience success right now instead of waiting for it to be out there somewhere. Because so many times we're like, I'm not successful. And it's like, look around you. Success is a destination and you are already here. That's what I tell people all the time. If you look around you, what you have in front of you today, that is the level of success based on everything that you've done or chosen not to do up until this point. If you don't like the level of success that's around you, you need to do something different, right? This is success today. Tomorrow it will look different, and the day after that it will look different. And really, the only thing that makes that thing happen is me. How I respond to things, the choices that I make, the directions that I move in, and when you recognize you're uniquely wired in a certain way, now you can go, oh, okay, so I have a great level of success based on what I've been doing and where I'm at. And now I can turn things up in different ways by letting go of some of these things or trusting somebody else to handle these things so that they're not on my plate anymore. And I can really start to feel like I've got some bandwidth. I've got the freedom to enjoy the fruits of my labors.
Yeah, this is reminding me of the hair. So I was telling Lisa, we talk about hair, that this morning I was like, all right, today hair is just going to be different, and the word came expansive, and I think that's what I'm really feeling as you're speaking. It's just like this letting go is really this expansion of, it's almost like this. So my first intuitive healer person I know here in Madison, Jeremy Enneker, does Reiki shares. And one time we were in a share and he's like, everybody try to widen Lindsay's aura. She looks really contracted there. And I use this motion when I talked with you this morning. It's like, there's this feeling and then there's this feeling. And I'm curious as if, even on a physical level, as we're letting go of what no longer serves us, if we're creating literal space for whatever is way deep down that little gem to actually shine, because that's where I'm thinking of your singing. I didn't know if you shared about your singing, but there's a lot of healing in the voice.
Yeah, there is. And the illusion that the illustration that you provided is actually very accurate. It's like, as we unpack everything that we've been hunkered down and carrying, we now have this spaciousness. And the example that I use is called the masterpiece in the attic, but it's the same idea. It's like, we have this beautiful masterpiece in our hearts, right? That has been stored in the attic, way in the back for years. And it's got years of cobwebs and fluff and just stuff all over it, right? And so you don't just rip this masterpiece out of the closet and hang it on a wall.
No.
It takes time to be restored. You have to carefully clean off all of the dust and the debris and all the layers of ick that have accumulated over the years before you can really see what's beautiful underneath. If you've never seen the show The Repair Shop, it's on Netflix, and they restore these family heirlooms. And it's a place in the UK that people bring these paintings or sculptures or whatever, just family treasures. And the lady who does all of the paintings, I mean, she like takes a little cotton swab, and she's rolling it by hand over every inch of this canvas. And it's like, this thing was grimy and dirty when it came in, and now it just glows. And that's that gem that you have inside you, right? Like that's the jewel that you're here to share. But you had years of shoulds foisted upon you, years of being told you can't, who do you think you are, you're not, whatever, right? Like whatever those stories are, just coating it like cobwebs and dust.
Yeah.
And now we've got to take time to get that stuff off there so that you can really shine and be the star that you are in whatever role you want to play in the world.
It's beautiful. I'd love to add a food analogy because I do think about food quite a bit. I think of a delicacy. Like you are a delicacy, and this intricate release is really even like creating a safer space for someone to heal. It's not a rip off the band-aid effect. And I know sometimes that is effective for people, really like tearing, I had a nail in the liver, or like pulling off whatever is around. But there is an integration period after that when you have a huge release. And I really like you. I was doing, this, and then you kind of hunched over almost like you had a backpack on.
Yeah.
Is that what you were thinking? Okay.
Yeah. Because I mean, depending on your story, I mean, you can feel pressed in, but you can also feel like you're carrying this load.
Yeah.
And the older you get, sometimes you feel like you've got a really heavy load. Now you've got kids, and you've got relationships, and you've got life and family and all this stuff. And it has to be this shedding, this unfolding, this releasing, and it's continual. We don't just do it once, because we put down the rock and we pick it back up, and we put it down and we pick it back up, and we put it down and we walk a little farther away, and then we go back and pick it up again. Like that's part of our pattern. And we have to learn at some point, we can let it go and we can walk away, and it's going to be okay.
Okay. So you're saying the rock is the pattern, essentially. That's your metaphor.
Yeah. The pattern, the burden, the load that you're carrying. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Because a lot of people use the weeding the garden aspect. And I think what you're saying is you're actually breaking the cycle at that point when you don't pick up the rock anymore.
Right.
That's a rewiring of the brain right there. And
exactly.
Okay. That goes back to like, wait, is this intuition coming, or is this just an old pattern saying like, this is a same situation? I think of it as this, like you're in the exact same situation, but you're different. And so you're choosing, I think we didn't record this, but I'll have to ask Nicholas Clay to come on a show sometime, because he discussed this. I don't know if exactly how the scenario was. It was like you're in the exact same situation, but you're not even like drawn to the same people. Or that we talked about books, so it's like the same. Okay, I have this conversation. Everyone's talking about Netflix, for example, and I used to be in that scenario there, but now I'm drawn to this, and now I'm naturally going to go here. And it's there probably is a boundaries period of time where you're like feeling this magnetism to go back, and it's like that's my norm. Like it's almost like the Rhesus monkey, where it's like you go back in your cage and you're free, but you still go back in your cage. And I think that's something that I've struggled with for many years, is like, you have the repeat patterns because it just feels like habit, or that you owe somebody something, or it's just you think you have to, or you should,
or it just feels comfortable because it's familiar.
Oh, I have a great analogy for that. So I was like, oh, but that jacket or that couch is so comfortable. And they're like, yeah, but it's probably moldy by now, Lindsay. I was like, oh yeah, I could take that off.
Yeah.
It was cozy for a while, but it's no, it's got to go. So yeah, that's interesting. You say that. I like your analogy there. You did talk about asking for help is not a sign of weakness. We didn't get too far into that, but you talked about, okay.
Yeah. So I grew up in a family where the unspoken sentiment was that if you have to ask for help, then there's something wrong with you. Like it's a sign of weakness to ask for help. And so that led me to, as a people pleaser, try and figure out all the ways that I could get everything done and do everything myself and never have to. So which that just fed the whole fusion creative wiring in me, right? Like I'll just do more things and I'll get praise for doing more things myself. But the problem with that, and I hit on this a little bit earlier, is that you continue to carry all the things, right?
Yeah.
The bigger problem is you never build the relationships. Like I am in my 40s and I am just now building the relationships with people that if I had been more able to ask for help in my 20s and 30s, I would have a huge network of people and friends and, all of these things. And I didn't, because I did it all myself.
Isolating.
Yeah. Isolating, because I'm like, well, I got all these things to do and I just got to get them done, and then I'll go socialize, or then I'll connect. And it's like, no, by reaching out to other people and building those bridges, now you've got people who can come help you and you can go help them. And you've got this symbiotic relationship of like, flow between two people. You have real relationships, right? And I didn't have any of that. Like, I had friends who were like these outposts of people that I could like send a message to or say hi to. But I would see them go out on their boat with other people that were one of those outposts. And I'm like, how come I don't ever go out on the boat? I want to go on the boat. Like, why don't I? Because I wasn't that kind of friend, because I didn't have that kind of relationship with them. And I'm like, well, you're always busy all the time, Lisa, and you're always blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm always busy because I've always got all this stuff to do. And now I'm like, I've unlearned some of that. And now I'm like, I ask for help sometimes when I don't need it, but it's definitely nice to have. And that practice of asking for help before it's critical, you need it, oh my gosh, my world is going to end if I don't have it. That is what builds the relationships, right? Saying, hey, I'm looking for somebody who can help me with blah, blah, blah. Move a couch, come help me with
usually moving stuff, right?
Weed a garden, whatever, right? I'm just looking for some social time while I'm doing some chores, right? That's really what it ends up being, is it makes the thing that you're working on more fun. But then there are the deeper things like my team. I have a wonderful team that can handle a lot of stuff, but because I'm so used to just carrying all the things myself, I have to ask, like, hey, is this something you guys could do for me? And they're like, well, yeah, hello, we're your team, of course. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can let this go and it's yours now, right? Like it just doesn't even occur to me because I've been wired to not ask for help. And so it's this continual practice of, can I ask my team for help with this? Can I ask somebody for help with this? Who can I ask for help with this? Who can help me with this? How can I get some help with this? Even if I don't need it, there's value in relationship building when we ask for help.
Yes, and it almost sounds like what you're saying is not necessarily just rewiring the brain, it's a practice. You're like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this again. I'm just going to really like work that muscle of asking for help. And when I was learning what you're speaking of there, it was the thing that really helped me was learning that you're taking away the joy of giving from the giver.
Yeah.
And it's the learning to receive essentially. And then the other day I don't know what I picked up, some piece of furniture. And I didn't even think about how I was going to get it into my house. The person who I bought it from helped me put it in my car. And I thought, I'm home now. And I had realized as I came in, two of my neighbor friends, ladies, were outside. And I had just heard on something that morning, like, give the joy to your neighbor to help you carry something in your house. And I can't remember it exactly. And I told them about that. And there were two, and they both offered to help. And then we got to talking, and then the three of us got to talking, and they met each other because they hadn't, and we're right here. And it was a great scenario of these three women, like just talking about the neighborhood and the history and stuff going on in town. And it was a great interaction. Whereas I could have just said, hi, and struggled in the house with the shelf. And so
exactly.
Phone numbers was great.
Yeah. Yep.
Reminds me of building community and kind of how community is meant to be and how families are, how run essentially. We are there to help each other.
Yeah. When people want to be in relationship with one another, they want to help each other, right? They want to be a part of raising the barn together, or, being in each other's lives in the trivial, the mundane ways, right? It's not always about the big party and the big show. It's about knowing that through the ups and the downs, that these people are going to be part of your world. And, for me, for many years, like those were my clients. My clients were my friends were my clients, and that was it. And I was like, I've got to break out of that pattern. Like I've got to start I love my clients and I'm glad that they're my friends, and I need other relationships beyond just people who are paying me to be in my world. Like there's something not quite, completely kosher there. So, that's how the outreach begins. And you start finding other people who are like on your wavelengths and curious about you and want to get to know you. And sometimes you're not going to find those people. Sometimes they're going to be like, yeah, you're too much for me, or you're not my flavor. That's fine. And so that whole asking thing, the other thing that you have to remember, and I want to make sure I say this, is regardless of the outcome, whether they say yes or no, you celebrate and reinforce the fact that you made the ask in the first place, right? I made the ask, yay, I did that regardless of the outcome. And then we celebrate the outcome separately, right? Like celebration is a big part of what I do with my clients, especially because fusions and linears don't tend to celebrate. They check boxes and just keep going. And it's like, no, you have to stop and go, hey, I did this. whether it turned out great or not, I did this. I took that step. I made that courageous action step. I asked that question. I reached out to that person. I did the thing. And then we can celebrate the outcome separately, because the outcome you can't control. You can influence it, but you can't control it. So if the outcome works out to your favor, woo, second celebration. But if not, that's okay. You still did the thing that you needed to do to move you in the direction of your dreams.
You said so much there, and I'd like to share a couple of words.
Please.
Workaholic, influence and control. And I actually think they're almost like a circle here. They're all connected, because when you become workaholic, you're essentially controlling your environment. And there's a vulnerability aspect to going on your friend's boat, to asking someone for help. Look at your face light up. And it, puts you out there, because, you may get a no. And that's like, so I, for a long time, I still kind of say this, like, I tend to like gather information and only ask questions that I'm going to get a yes to. Like, I don't want to be told no. So it's like, I'm just going to figure these people out. And if I know that'll be a yes, then they'll say yes. Then I'll ask only the yes questions. But that's also a form of control, if you think about it, and then the celebration is a form of relaxation. Celebration is also a separation from work. And especially as an entrepreneur or anyone that works a lot, that is that downtime, which creates the friend time, which is not only friends with colleagues or clients. I think colleagues, friends, clients, a different thing. People, they're not paying you essentially to be your friend. But
right.
Yeah, there's a lot there. But influence actually has an effect on it of letting go of control, and the idea that the result is, like you said, it's really, I don't want to say none of our business, but it really is, it's out of our control.
Well, control is just an illusion anyways. We think we've got control because we're grasping and we're holding. And this is something my coach continues to work on me with, is like, hold it loosely, because it can come and go at any time. Like, you could think everything's great and then find out you've got a 2-inch kidney stone that needs to come out. And you're like, okay, I guess I'm going to the hospital now. And then you go to the hospital and you're like, okay, they got it. And they're like, oh, no, we missed some. Like, not that this has ever happened to me. That happened to me this week, right? And so you can't control what's going to happen. All you can do is show up and be as present as possible, and make sure that you're advocating for yourself and speaking up when things don't feel right, and being the best you that you can be wherever you're at. That's really all you can do. And people are either going to like it or not like it. And that's not on you, that's on them. Right. But the goal then, as we build relationships, is to keep striving to connect with the people who do like it, and build that network of people who do like us, who we are as we are, warts, sparkles, and all, right? Like, we don't have to try and be somebody different for them. We can just be ourselves, because that's really the ultimate joy in life.
Yeah. And that's what I said to you. I said, I just feel like I could be myself around you. And I think that you have that ability and that effect, like double thumbs up. Yeah, that effect on people. And so the last thing I want to touch on here is, I just heard of the song, excuse me, interesting, hang on loosely and don't let go, and being passionate. So we didn't really touch on that. And you also said being too big of a person or too much for others. And I think a lot of us run into that, myself included. Like, if I just be who I am, as passionate as I am, and, if you even talk about like, like your creative energy and like this masterpiece, is really a lot of sacral chakra, creativity, sexual energy, this ability to use that and share that and not inhibit it and not be afraid. And so I'm curious what you think about like this being passionate or maybe being too much, and how people respond to you, and if it matters.
So I was in
You're laughing.
it was a concert in a church, and during this service, they did some automatic writing, and one of the other women in the group shared what she had written, and it stuck with me. And it's the thing that I come back to over and over again. It's like, you were designed to shine bright. It's not your job to put the sunglasses on other people. It's their job to go get the sunglasses. It's their job, right? So if you're too bright and you're too big, that's their problem, not yours, because you're wired to be a certain way. Now, I've said that, and there are still times when I turn the volume down and I'm like, ooh, and I think there is a time and a place where we need to be mindful of our environment. I am not going to go blasting into a funeral going, I'm here, like, that's not what I'm going to do. We have to be aware of our surroundings, but at the same time, we don't need to diminish who we are, the gifts that we've been given, and how we are wired to show up in the world to accommodate and appease everybody else around us, right? Like, because they think we're too much, they think we're too big, we're too loud, we're too fat, we're too old, we're too whatever. It's like, I'm me. For all the choices that I've made in the world, I'm me. And some people are going to get with that and some people are not. And you're not my right people. Bye-bye. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you.
All that as soon as you get there. So when you're diminishing your light, you're drawing in the people that are also diminishing theirs. And what I had learned, even in my neighborhood, this is a great example, is someone else said to me, like, why are you running from yourself? Oh, I'll give a coach this one. She said, why are you hiding from yourself, Lindsay, or running away from yourself? And I was like, I don't know. I don't want to be too much for people, or that's inappropriate, or they're going to think whatever. However, what you're doing is you're drawing in other people that are also doing the same and inviting them to hide themselves. And so the more you can really be yourself, you're also inviting the others, which you must be doing because you're inviting me to do it, is to be myself. And so I was laughing because the neighbor who helped me with the shelf said, I see you wear all these cute dresses around, and it just really inspired me to do the same. And I was like, great. Even if I'm mowing the lawn in a dress, which is not that common, but I've been doing it lately, then all of a sudden you're inspiring others to do the same and really shine their light or dance in their front yard or whatever it is. And I think we have a soundtrack going here today, Lisa. I have Blinded by the Light, Hang Out Loosely. I think I have a third. It was something, you were doing something.
Well, I always say my life is a musical and I spontaneously break out in song. So that would not surprise me. But I want to piggyback on what you just said, because not only do we bring people into our gravitational pull that are reflecting what we're putting out, anytime we're wearing a mask, anytime we're pretending to be something that we're not, people are falling in love with that and not who we really are. And so now it becomes heavy and now it becomes resentful. And you've built this business on this persona that isn't who you are, and you're resenting it because you don't really get to be who you are. You don't really get to show up fully and completely as yourself. And that's why I talk about this continual peeling away of layers, because the person who started my business 25 years ago, more than 25 years ago, is not the person that I am today. And the person that I am today is not who I'm going to be next year. I was watching my semi-annual planning video from last year for my clients, because we do this every year about this time. And I'm getting ready to do the one for this year. And I looked at how I differently in the face I was, the environment I was in. I'm like, I'm not that person anymore.
No, you do look different. You're right. Physically.
Yeah.
Your features do change. Your posture changes.
Right. And so if I'm not that same person that I was then, and I'm going to be different next time, right? If I know that this evolution is continual, why am I trying to hold on to this mask of who I've been instead of saying, this is who I am?
That's a great inspiration for the audience, actually, because that could be a daily practice, essentially. Like, it's almost the same thing as like asking God or source or whoever you're guided by, like, hey, what's my mission today? Who am I today? And you are really surrendering to the present moment and saying, who am I here to help? Like your intention for the day. That's what came in today. And then tomorrow it's a new one, and it's a new one. And it is that constant weeding of the garden. And there's more to that. I think it talks about doing the work. And I also think it becomes easier. I think we get more in tune and more in tune and more in tune. You got it, to where we become so sensitive to the intricacies and the nuances that we are not. And so I think it's like these big layers, and we get used to kind of living under this big backpack or whatever. We have all the masks, and I definitely relate to that. And then we start peeling them away, and it's like, wait, I have a thin layer of a mask on this morning, and I'm kind of, like I told you, agitated and sweaty. Like, I don't like feeling that way. So something's got to give. And I think everyone out there, for example, has different ways of doing that. So it can be with energy work. It can be, we talked about running the other day, and it's like you're starting out, you're just literally getting off and processing all the emotions of the day. Then you get to the runner's high. Once you're there, you're like, oh, I'm in the zone now. And that is literally a daily practice. So
yeah,
I'm curious what that may be for you. I've definitely shifted over time, like writing.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that comes up for me as we're talking about, this peeling away is I've worked with people from like the very beginning, early stage entrepreneurs to 9-figure music superstar types, right? And the thing that I've noticed about them is they're very particular about how they want things to be, and whatever. And we who aren't at that level yet, we see it as high maintenance, or we see it as bitchy, or we see it as demanding. And it's like, no, they've gotten so clear on who they are. They are so clear on what works for them and what doesn't, that anything that disrupts the jewel that they've created for themselves, the space of safety that they've created for themselves, has them fall out of that zone that they need to stay in to be able to create at that level. And so that's why they have NDAs, and that's why they say, don't talk to me this way. And that's why they say, don't look at me in that way. And that's why they say, don't call me by this name, call me by this name, right? Like that's the whole reason they've got that, because it keeps them in that zone. And we just haven't gotten there yet. So we look at it and go, green M&Ms, that's just demanding. No, they're very clear that they need certain things in a certain way. And if you want to travel in that environment, you have to be willing to honor their boundaries.
Yes.
And we need to do the same things for ourselves. I mean, maybe not at the 9-figure superstar way, but our way.
Yeah. And I also think you're speaking of creativity, because maybe it does take the green up. We all know this about ourselves. We know how to get into our creative zone, and in getting in that zone. And I say this to people, like for me, I was for a long period of time, I could write really well and all these ideas would flow in after yoga. So it's like, or movement, or I have the same spot I go to. And I'm also very particular like that. And it's very interesting you say that. I think that really inspires the audience too, to honor those things. And it does speak about boundaries and knowing yourself. Cause I think we all do. I think we're just a little afraid to say like, no, I want my coffee this way. Like I want to pour it in. I'm very particular about how I heat things up and then make things, because it's very ritualistic and it's very therapeutic for me. And it's like the smell, the steam, the act, not even the drinking. It's just the watching. And so that can like be your setup. I'm almost thinking of like preparing, this like doing ritual prior to, I'm actually thinking of like tantra, but more like setting up us, like setting a space intentionally to prepare for something. Probably your creativity. But I think these people know that without that setup, they can't produce what they're wanting to produce.
Exactly. There's at different levels of creativity and at different times in your creative process, you need to be able to ritualize the process of creating, right? Like I need to have these things in this order. I need to get up at this time and check these boxes and then I'll be ready, right? Like, and the more you know that about yourself, the more you set yourself up for success. And, you know, a good portion of your success is environmental. So of course, if you need green walls, then paint them green. If you need flowers, then buy flowers. Like whatever you need to do to get yourself in your best possible space, like start doing those things for yourself as best as you can, as you are able, right? Maybe we're not made of money and can just paint all the walls in our apartment because our landlord will let us, but so maybe we hang a really big green picture on that wall or lean up a piece of green poster board or whatever, like whatever you need to inspire you and get you in that place where your environment empowers you. And if you have to ritualize that, then do it. Like maybe somebody else thinks that's high maintenance, but if it works for you and you ain't breaking any laws or hurting anybody, get on with it.
Yeah, I think that's a form of self-care, and it's an empowerment piece as well.
Yeah.
And it's so funny you said that, because I run a creative circle that's an all men's group, and our theme 2 days ago was coincidence versus truth. And so the idea about that was like, is it just a coincidence that you walked outside and this person walked by? Or is it your truth? Is this happening so often that you're so in tune with your intuition that this is, like you were saying, like this is a ritual. This becomes your setup for your life. And so I always say, like, for whatever reason, something told me like it wasn't time of day to go outside right now and start pulling weeds. Like, what? Why now? Like, why are you asking me to do this? And then I go and I have a 30-minute conversation with my neighbor about narcissism and trauma. And then she says to me, wow, I thought your life was so perfect, but now you talk about these type of things, you seem more approachable now. And like, I feel like I'm not burdening you with this information. Like, wow, what a breakthrough. Like I'm becoming more real to the people that live on my street. That's a big deal. So maybe I didn't want to go pull weeds in the rain, but it worked out just fine. And so I think you're right. And I think really listening to those things and going internal, and I think getting very clear on what it is that you do want, like we discussed in the beginning, does take, a lot of pushing away and getting really quiet, which is scary for the busy people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to leave people with today? I think we're going to wrap up here.
Woo. I guess I would wrap up with my favorite Judy Garland quote. It's better to be a first-rate version of yourself than a second-rate version of somebody else. Like just do you the best that you can, the best way you know how, as you are able, and trust that the right people are going to come into your circle and gravitate towards you and love you for who you are and what you bring to the table, not what you think you should be providing to them.
I love that. I might piggyback on what you said there. Okay, we can type the Judy Garland quote in there, is once you are very clear on what you want, you just get curious about how is the universe going to provide. That's the curiosity and the joy in it. And I love that you say that because you are super unique and you are doing your own thing. And I think you probably have more to share on your journey, even on that, on another show. I'm curious how people can find you, Lisa.
Oh, sure. So I'm on all the social places as Lisa Robbin Young, and my website is lisarobinyoung.com. I encourage you to go to the website and take the free quiz and find out what your creative type is. It's going to help you learn a bit more about how you're uniquely wired to show up in the world.
Beautiful. I love that. And then just to go round back to our intention today was it was okay for them to take care of themselves. I think that was our intention for it.
Yes, absolutely. It's 100% okay for you to take care of yourself and to want what you want the way that you want it, even if you don't get it. It's still okay to want it.
Yes, beautiful. Okay, thank you so much for everyone out there. Have a wonderful day. We will see you later.